Henry Thoreau, a rule breaker. Henry Thoreau told civilization, yo, I gotta go, baby, I need a vacation. So we headed out to Walden, whereupon he copped this revelation. Whoa, so many of us live lives of quiet desperation. Lo and behold, another old quotation seems to capture the essence of a modern vexation. It's like Thoreau knew that in the future, you and I would need to act in radical ways to mitigate the sad fact that, yes, because we've got to slave to keep all our bills paid, sometimes it seems our minds are kind of ripe to get played by the vultures in our culture that hope to withhold us from anything any deeper than work while we scold you. Buy what we told you. Pay what you owe, and pretty sure we'll make sure you're in a debt you'll probably never get over. Treating human beings as if we're merely skin machines where the cash is, some profiteers, demographics, puppets made of plastic who are molded and then mastered, stretched thin as thread till we're bled dead into caskets. Yes, we try to contrast it by coming off sarcastic, hating the situation we face, and we find it is so drastic, so many of us huff and puff and snort and smoke and drink all kinds of stuff to get blasted, hoping to deaden the pain remaining from our constantly kicked asses. Sooner or later, we find out that action makes the masses act sometimes a bit more passive, which keeps our minds inactive to the plans of all those fascists who try to keep you and I separated into races and genders and classes, because that's the way you maintain the status quo's status as is. But sometimes you got to break the rules. And don't let them head fake you, shake and bake and back break you down to the ground, come around, clown and undertake you. You gotta fight back. And my advice is, use whatever is rebellious toward beauty and humanity that's left inside of you as your weapon. Do you dig? Do you dig? Do you dig? Welcome to another chapter of Voices on the Green. This is a night where we receive and give the gift of story and community. And as you've heard, we also receive and give the gift of music. Laying down the sounds as you came in tonight, give it up for Mr. Ken Karnofsky. Where are you, Ken? Get on here somewhere. There he is. Thank you. Now, per usual, we do have a main musical guest, and we will introduce her in a bit. But tonight, we have a mixture of tellers of various levels of experience in speaking in front of crowds. So some of these stories you will hear will be told for the very first time. So if you will please be welcoming and encouraging to every storyteller that comes up here, that would be great. In fact, let's practice that now. Yes. One way for us to be encouraging and welcoming is to give our full attention and reduce the chances that the outside world will interfere with what we create in here tonight. So please take a moment to silence your mobile phones or devices that beep and do all those kinds of things so that they don't pitch us away from what we create tonight. During that opening piece, you were so good to express to me that you are indeed a people who dig. But our first teller can not only dig, but can dive. Don Yansen was raised on a small island without many rules, so he is perfect to start off this edition of Voices on the Green. He has worn many a hat. He was a serial high-tech startup denizen who switched to work in international development, focusing primarily on smartphone-enabled public health solutions in Africa and India. He has worked as both a king crab fisherman and a cattle ranch hand. Yes, he is the very personification of surf and turf. He was also a rocket scientist, for real, literally, and both a tree surgeon and a carpenter. Wait. So let me get this straight, Doc. You save trees only to cut them up later. Gotcha. So, I bring you one of our many cut-ups this evening who is going to show us how he breaks the rules, a true Renaissance man in our own midst. Would you please welcome Don Yansen.
When I was a young man, I loved adventure and hated rules. So when a friend of mine asked me one day, would I like to go night diving for lobsters? I said, "No, sounds interesting, but why at night?" And he said, "Well, it's illegal and we don't want to get caught." So I said, "I'm in." So one Friday evening in mid-July, we headed up to Rockport to his favorite cove and parked near a bunch of bushes that sort of hid the cove, changed into our wetsuits, got our masks, had flashlights in waterproof baggies, headed down to the beach, went into the water, and as soon as we looked below the surface, lobsters were everywhere. They come out at night to feed. That's why it's illegal. So it was easy pickings. We filled our bag of enough lobsters for a nice lobster feed and headed for shore. Now, the only tricky part of this was getting out of the water with the lobsters and not being seen. So Jim's plan, which had worked many times for him, was to throw the bag of lobsters down near the water amongst some rocks, go up, change. Then one guy would go down to the water, get the lobsters. The other guy would drive the car right by this little passage in the beach, in the bushes, and stop. The guy with the lobsters would jump in the car. We'd beat it out of Rockport. No one was the wiser. So we did this 2 or 3 times, and it was great. And then I mentioned it to a friend of mine, Marshall, who loved to do things on the shady side also. And he said, "I want to come." So next Friday night that we were able to do it, 3 of us headed up there and went through the same procedure. Got on our wetsuits, went out there. It was kind of a stormy night that night, and we were tossed around. We didn't get as many lobsters, but we got a few, and finally we headed in, placed the bag down near the water, went up and changed. I got into the car, was the driver. We sent Marshall down through the bushes to get the lobsters. So we watched. As soon as he went through the bushes, I started the car slowly to drive to the place where Marshall would come out. I hadn't gone 5 feet when sirens and blue lights came up over the hill behind. A police car skidded in front of my car, blocking me. Another police car pulled up against my bumper, trapping us. Not that I would have gone anywhere. But so a big guy with a lobster patrolman badge comes to my side. And Jim and I are thinking hundreds of dollars of fine, night in jail. And he says, "Okay, you guys, where are the lobsters?" I said, No, we're just night diving. And he didn't like that. So he said, "I want to look in your car." So we showed him my car, and of course there was nothing in there. About this time, Marshall comes through the bushes. The police immediately go to Marshall and, "Okay, what are you doing? Where are the lobsters?" And Marshall says, "We were just getting in shape for rugby." Now, that did not go over well. And about this time, neighbors with flashlights surrounded our car from both sides. So they're peering in at these criminals, and they did not look friendly. So, but they asked the police if they could help look for the lobsters. So this whole crowd went through the bushes and down towards where we had thought we'd put the lobsters, and we were just petrified that they were going to walk up with them. After about 10 minutes, they started going away from the area that we thought the lobsters were. And so we got, suddenly, our outrage, our terror turned to outrage. So we rolled down the windows and started harassing the police. Are you going to keep us innocent guys? And very soon they said, oh, no, you guys are free to go. So the cop in front of us backed away, and we left Rockport as fast as the speed limit would allow. Sadly, that was the last night dive for lobsters that I did. But in my memory, they're the juiciest, the most tender, the most delicious, particularly the undersized ones, the little ones, that I ever had. Thank you.
In addition to all that Don has accomplished, he still found time to fulfill that time-honored dream of every parent when he quit college for a year, ran off to L.A., and joined a folk band. Band? We don't need no stinking band. The next performer needs none, even though she performs with them at various times. She is an artist with a style that feels entirely one of a kind, charming, charismatic, breathtaking to listen to, enlightens us with beautifully poetic lyrics, and is a shining star in a stagnant musical industry. These are just some of the observations and accolades many in the press have given Jodi Heights. Jodi hails from Boston, that other famous Massachusetts, almost as important as Lexington town. She has received multiple degrees in music, including a master's in music from New England Conservatory, so she knows how to play and how to sing, but she does more than that. In my opinion, Jodi's music ennobles the listener, and it is a force for good. Her brilliant lyrics plumb the depths of everyday life, the way some folks plumb the depth of the ocean for lobsters. Her songs find the soft, tender, sweet meat hiding in the hard shell that can sometimes be human existence. Through her compositions, Jodi musically invokes urgent concerns like climate change, the pandemic, and the growing wealth gap. Her latest release, Nocturne, she explores the relationship that we as a species have to this phenomenon that we call night. Jodi's music exemplifies what we wish to do here at Voices on the Green, and that is to engage, entertain, affect, educate, and elevate the listener. So please, be ennobled by listening to Jodi Heights.
You saw her in the distance. Something about her caught your eye. You found a way to tempt her, roped her in and left her tied. You tried domestication, but it didn't seem to take. Look at all the time you wasted, and she only stayed the same. You can't blame her, you won't change her. Try to tame her and you'll understand that she is a wild woman. Do you need a little lesson? Well, then let the class begin. Don't try to confine her, can't corral her spirit in. This lady loves her freedom, so if you want to get somewhere, she's not easily broken. It's best to handle her with care. You can't blame her, you won't change her. Try to tame her and you'll understand that she is a wild woman. There's no stable that is able to contain or withstand the strength of a wild woman. Wild, wild, wild woman.
Jodi Heights. And that was just the opener, people. And that song, Wild Woman, is an excellent one to introduce the next two tellers. The first of which is JoAnn Mulready-Shick. JoAnn was raised in Wilmington, Delaware, where a then 30-year-old Senator Joe Biden delivered her high school commencement address. Out of respect, do not do the math. After beginning her career in clinical nursing, in other words, learning to save our butts, JoAnn went on to become a dean, program director, and clinical professor of nursing at Roxbury Community College and UMass Boston. So one would think that based on a career of adhering to and overseeing strict hospital procedures and practices, JoAnn would, of course, never transgress or break any rules, no matter how minuscule. But alas, you would be wrong. Please welcome our next rule breaker, JoAnn Mulready-Shick.
Okay, great. Back in the mid-1970s, when I was in college, I'm going to give away my age no matter what, Regie, so. Back in the mid-1970s, when I was in college, oh gosh, that's really something. All right, I'm going to just turn around a second. Just give me one more minute, okay? Of course, okay. Whoa, all right, I'm good now. I'm really good. Okay, back in the 1970s when I was in college, the legal drinking age varied from state to state. Some of you might remember that. In Delaware, where I was, it was 20, and in Pennsylvania, it was 21, and in New Jersey, it was 18, making the New Jersey bars and music venues a magnet for college-age students like myself. So in 1976, July 4th weekend, bicentennial weekend, my college friends and I decide to go to Asbury Park, New Jersey, to the boardwalk, to the Stone Pony Music Club, to see this up-and-coming band, Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. And my friend Marty, who was with us at the time and from the area, said that the local buzz was that Bruce might show up later in the evening. Need I add a last name? So we were really excited. So we get to the front door of the Stone Pony and get carded, and we find out that these bouncers are not to be messed with. My friend Darcy had forgotten her ID. And these bouncers, no way, no way, no way, we're going to let her in. So Darcy and her friend Jay abandoned their hopes of seeing Southside Johnny and decide to spend the rest of the evening on the Asbury Park boardwalk. Very packed July 4th weekend. I was definitely disappointed, but I headed in to that club with my guy friend, the guys, and we land a table within 10 feet of the stage. And this is a really intimate music venue, smaller than the size of this room right here. And we were just so excited that we had a table so close to the stage. And we settle in for the evening. And we were not disappointed. I mean, Southside Johnny and Asbury Jukes were just this high energy, no holds barred, vintage blues, R&B, and soul, and that place was rocking. And after a set or two, I just began to think that it was so unfair that Darcy wasn't with us, and decided I had to do something about it. And I told my guy friends, I mean, we were all okay friends. We were from our co-ed dorm days, but I just said, I'm going to be bringing Darcy back into this club. He just like looked at me like, what? I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to be bringing her back. And I guess this idea of determination sort of set in that night of when I decide to do something, I really go ahead and do it. And I don't know if it was because of the high energy of the music or because of being with my friends or, the few pitchers of beer that we had drunk by then. But I was determined to do this. And so somehow, after Southside Johnny and the Jukes had finished a set and were heading into their dressing room, I followed them. Where did this come from? I'm usually kind of this reserved person, and I just had my mind set to do this. And so I tell them of my dilemma, and the drummer, Kenny Pontefollo, a.k.a. Popeye, says to me, no problem, just get her to the back door of the Stone Pony Club, and I'll be there to greet her. I'll put my arm around her, say she's my instant girlfriend, and I'll whisk her into the club. And the rest, will all fall in line. And I could not believe my luck. Now, all I had to do was find Darcy and Jay on this boardwalk, but I was determined. And I really, years later decided that this is really where this determination trait of mine really started to kick in. Another example was when I lost my contact lens on my parents' front lawn coming in late one night from college when I was visiting. And back then, you had one pair of lenses. They were hard contact lenses. They were non-disposable contact lenses, and they were expensive. So by darn, that next morning, I found that contact lens in that morass of grass. No problem. And years later, as program director at Roxbury Community College, I made sure that program got its first national accreditation. My Badger qualities just kicked in. So that night, I was determined, but you gotta remember, this boardwalk, I was gonna come back with Darcy, and no bouncer bodies or front door rules were gonna stop me. But this boardwalk was 1.5 miles long. It was late at night, dark, some lights, very, very packed. And no cell phones, right? So I wend my way through all the little shops and the eateries, and I just keep going, and I didn't think I was ever going to find them. And somehow I found them in the back of this pinball arcade. I couldn't believe it. So I grabbed Darcy's arm, I told her to grab Jay's, I told them of our plan as we pushed our way through the crowds, and soon we were knocking on the back door of the Stone Pony Club. And Popeye opens the door, embraces Darcy, just whisks her in, and Jay and I are able to go around to the front, and we were all together in our seats listening to the last sets of Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. And I was just so happy that I decided to break those rules to get my friend into the club, because it was such a perfect evening. And then we're at about 12:30 when everything's winding down, we're about ready to leave. And in walks Clarence Clemens with his sax and Bruce. and they jam with the Jukes and Johnny until the early morning hours. It was just the most perfect evening. And you know, that summer of '76 really put the Stone Pony, the Asbury Park Boardwalk, and Southside Johnny and the Jukes on the national map, and Bruce was just beginning his ascent, and the members of the E Street Band and the Jukes went back and forth through the years as band members, and the rest is really history. 50 years later, the Stone Pony is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and I'd break the rules again any day, because my friend Darcy, 50 years later, is a dear lifelong friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, JoAnn, for sharing that with us. You might have noticed that I'm not usually dressed in the normal way I would dress for Voices on the Green. Some folks have commented on that. You know, remember when I said, my wife says I typically dress like I'm somewhere between a leprechaun and a pimp? Right? Tonight, I decided to dress like a normal human being. This is me breaking the rules. However, I do have my cufflinks right here, just close to my heart. I love that story because I'm a performer as well. And I love that story about seeing these iconic bands, right? Folks who don't have the name yet, and then you see them, and then they're there, and they're just big as life, even though they're just right like 10 feet in front of you. And, you know, being a person who's been involved in several musical endeavors, I do have to say, I do find it difficult to believe that anybody would buy that the drummer had a girlfriend. But okay, statistically, it had to happen. Our next and last teller of this half of Voices on the Green is Valerie Overton. Valerie is a lifelong civil rights and social justice activist and is, in my opinion, one of the civic fixtures here in Lexington, always calling us to live our ethics of good citizenship. But every now and again, Valerie gets the overwhelming urge to try the flying trapeze. Gets to thinking that she'd like to sneak into the camp that her son is teaching trapeze in and be like, "Hey, baby, Mama's here to take a class." Who hasn't done that? Parents, don't act like you don't like embarrassing the living snot out of your children. I rarely miss a chance to do so. In addition to Valerie's full-time work in public health, another woman saving our butts, Valerie co-chairs Lex Pride, who is our community partner for this edition of Voices on the Green. We'll tell you more about that later. But Valerie enjoys parenting her son and chosen daughter. You enjoy parenting? Who knew? Reading, cooking, and being crafts. She does not own a television, but she'll eat any vegetable you offer her as long as it's not okra. Please open a space in your heart for our very own Valerie Overton.
Thank you, Regie. And how about Regie O'Hara-Gibson? Is he fabulous or what? All right, enough about Regie. Let's talk about me. So some of you might know of me as an advocate for social justice here in Lexington. I've been at it for quite a while. The story I'm going to tell you dates back to the 1970s and 80s when Mike Dukakis was governor of Massachusetts. And Governor Dukakis was quite popular, unless you belonged to a group he didn't like, such as the queer community. So by that time, when Governor Dukakis was in office here, the LGBTQ community had made some strides. But this was long before marriage equality or other legal protections. And in fact, although Governor Dukakis had been branded a liberal, he changed state policy to effectively ban LGBTQ people from becoming foster parents. So you might be able to guess who protested that. I helped form a group called Foster Equality to try to persuade the governor to change his decision. So we made phone calls, we wrote letters, we asked for meetings, we got the National Association of Social Workers, various psychology associations, and even Dr. Benjamin Spock to write letters to the governor in support of our position. We found research studies, including some by Dukakis' own people, that found that children do just as well in queer families as they do in other families. Now, these research studies did find one major difference, however, and that is that children in queer-headed families tend to be more accepting and more open-minded. Do we really want that? Despite all of this, Governor Dukakis continued to refuse to even acknowledge our existence. So we decided to start attending his events in the hopes of speaking, ever so politely, to him and to his staff and to his supporters. To no avail. After more than a year of advocacy, we decided to stage a sit-in outside Governor Dukakis' office in the State House. We knew there was a possibility of arrest, and so we planned very seriously. Because at that time, and still to this day in some places, queer people are at risk of assault and abuse while in police custody or in jail, especially if you were transgender or a person of color. So we took this very seriously. When the day came for us to sit in, we made our usual polite request for a meeting with the governor. When refused, as usual, we told Dukakis' staff that we would wait outside his office for a meeting. And so we waited for hours. We sat, we stood, we chatted, we smiled and waved at people, and we sang. It was all very kumbaya. Finally, late in the day, the State House police came to ask us to leave. We smiled and said very cheerfully that we would wait for a meeting with the governor, thank you very much. They arrested us. So this was a surreal experience. There we were, smiling, polite, quiet, being arrested. My main memory from that time is being grabbed by my hair, which I wore long at the time, and dragged across the floor and down the hallway. We were taken to the Charles Street Jail, which was notorious at that time for its poor conditions. And in fact, the courts had decided that it violated inmates' constitutional rights. But it wasn't closed for another few years, and so that's where we were taken at the time. In jail, we found that the cells were populated with people who'd been arrested for sex work. And us, a group of lesbians. We started talking with each other, and we talked through much of the night. We all fell a bit in love with each other. It was a moment of pure human connection. The day I got out of jail, I went back to work. So I had been in jail, and I had not seen the TV news, and did not know that my face was among those featured in news stories about the arrests. And so began a period of homophobic harassment at work that would leave me in tears many a night. At trial, we were sentenced to community service, which I served at Rosie's place. Several months later, I quit my job and I went to Nicaragua to help build schools, work in health clinics, teach hygiene, and do other kinds of public health activities. This was at the height of the war there. Ironically, I felt safer, more relaxed, more comfortable, happy in war-torn Nicaragua than I had at my job in liberal Boston. Yet, I would go through it all over again for that moment of connection with the other inmates, the sex workers, the night of our arrest in the Charles Street jail. There were no pretenses, just honest, open-hearted conversation that revealed our differences, for sure, yes, but more poignantly, revealed how much we have in common with each other in our lives and our struggles and our joys. We can truly understand how interconnected sexism, racism, classism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, xenophobia, and other forms of hate are when we engage as deeply as we did that night. We see how those ugly forces divide us, obscuring how precious, loving, and powerful we can be if united. So I have been advocating, agitating, and getting into the best kinds of trouble for well over 50 years now. That moment encapsulates why. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. We, too, at Voices on the Green, like to get into good trouble, and that's why we always select a partner who we can get into good trouble with, an organization that shows us through example how we might be better to, for, and with one another. So to introduce our community sponsor, will you please welcome Voices on the Green's Exec Direct, Mr. David Rose. You'd rather have Sarah do it. So would I. Why don't we welcome Sarah Mannix.
Thank you for coming this evening. One of the missions of Voices on the Green is community building. I think when you share your stories and your music with us, you help us understand each other just a little bit better. So thank you. We also want to learn about the good work that's being done in our community. Each show, we select a local nonprofit organization whose values are similar to our values. We promote them. Tonight, we celebrate them, and we share in the profits of the evening with them. We are so happy that Lex Pride is our partner for this evening. They'll have a table in Parish Hall during intermission, so please stop by and learn about some of the work that they're doing. Right now, I'd like to reintroduce Lex Pride co-founder and storyteller for this evening. Please welcome back Valerie Overton.
Hi again. I'm back. Now the question is, how many times am I going to come back? So thank you to Voices on the Green. Lex Pride is so honored to be the community partner for Voices on the Green, breaking the rules tonight. So Lex Pride is a local nonprofit organization that seeks to provide community and equity, inclusion, and justice for LGBTQ people and their allies in Lexington and surrounding areas. And we place a lot of emphasis on intersectionality because we recognize that LGBTQ people span all other demographics, whether it's race and ethnicity, whether it's disability, or any other kind of demographic trait. And we also firmly believe that no one is free until we are all free. And so we work with determination for inclusion and justice for all peoples. And we do that in a whole variety of ways. We provide social and support opportunities, and we do a lot of advocacy behind the scenes in schools and municipal government and the community. We provide training and education, and we partner with a variety of organizations. And so we are very open and welcoming. You all are welcome to join us at our events and celebrations, and you can learn more about us at the table in the hall. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Valerie and Lex Pride, for all that you have done, do, and will continue to do. Before we close out this first half with another great original song, I'd like to give you just a bit of info. Some of it is just a recap. As Sarah said, we'll be convening in Parish Hall, which is through this exit. You go through here, you'll be in Parish Hall. You'll pass one of the restrooms on to your right if you should need to use it. There it is. We will be in 15 minutes is what we'll have for the intermission. And in Parish Hall, what you'll find is you will be able to partake of snacks and drinks and speak with each other, we hope. Meet someone who you don't know. We hope you also speak with Valerie and Lex Pride and find out what they do and how you might be able to help. And also, if you keep going toward the back, what you'll find is a table with CDs, T-shirts, downloads, and even wine glasses available for purchase. Seems like someone knows you people. These will be attended to by a very nice gentleman named David. David, where's David? Is he back? There's David, right here. And he is the partner of the woman who will sing us into not only intermission, but bliss. Once again, please welcome Jodi Heights.
So this next song is really about our tendency as humans to put each other into boxes and easily understood categories. And I think that when we start to feel the container get a little too small, that's when our instinctual side starts to push for freedom, to break out of those boxes and say, I am multifaceted and multidimensional. There is so much more to me than just this one thing that you've picked to identify me by. So this is Please the Crowd.
through all the hoops with a smile and a salute. I was the good girl all along, but I'm tired of all the glitz, walking wires and doing tricks. I'm in the spotlight and centering, but something just feels wrong. This is the way I am supposed to exist, but I'm telling you, there's more to me than this. I'm completely uninspired, but I'm juggling with fire. Come on, come on, see me rain or shine. Hear the grandstand start to roar as I swallow down a sword. You want to see an illusionist? Prepare to feast your eyes. This is the way I am supposed to exist, but I'm telling you, there's more to me than this. Rings of conformity, flying through the air with no net beneath me. Am I realizing too late? I'm contorted out of shape, bent over backwards to please the crowd. I'm supposed to entertain while the tent goes up in flames. I try to signal the ringmaster who's busy taking bows. This is the way I am supposed to exist, but I'm telling you, there's more to me than this.
Thank you, JoAnn. 15-minute intermission, and we'll be starting back for the second half. Welcome back to Voices on the Green. Have you enjoyed what you've heard so far? Well, if you have, that has been partly because of Mr. Ken Karnofsky blessing our ears and the space tonight. Right now, I want you to settle in. We have a quick sort of information session coming up for you. It's going to be given to you by, really, our executive director, Mr. David Rose, regarding the future adventures of Voices on the Green.
So just really quick, but I do have something exciting to announce. And it's not really breaking the rules, but it's bending them. In any case, some of you may be aware that next year the town of Lexington will be celebrating the 250th anniversary of something else on the green. And it'll, we think it's kind of neat. And there's a Lex 250 commission, and they're organizing events to celebrate this neat thing. And they asked if we would collaborate with them to have Voices on the Green be events that are part of that 250 celebration. So we'll be doing... So we'll be organizing probably 4 Voices on the Green that'll stretch from before the battle to after the battle. And we'll be working with the commission to come up with themes that seem both about the old and the new of Lexington. And they will be publicizing and working with us to make the events more grander and wonderful and whatever. And we're delighted to be working with them and to feel a part of the town in this way. And I just want to, Jane, is Jane Hanley here? Where is Jane? So she's the head of the Lex 250. Oh, okay. She's a member. So anyway, if you want to talk with her after, she's probably going to try to run out. Anyway, so that's all. So next year, last thing. So you may have some thoughts about what stories should we hear here that relate to that theme of revolution, of independence, of working together, whatever, that would fit with that celebration. So if you have stories, themes, please come and talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Hopefully on break you got, during the intermission, you had the chance to speak with members of Lex Pride. Also, perhaps, if you looked up, you got the chance to see some of the wonderful artwork, the photography of Barbara Aiello, who I believe is in the house. Barbara, are you here? Barbara's right over there. Wonderful stuff. Photographic, artistic. Please, please, please have a chance to look at that. And also, we hope you did like I did, which is to get a chance to buy one of Jodi's recordings. See, Jodi creates the kind of music that I need. I need this kind of stuff in times like these that demand more of me as a human being. Sometimes we just need to be exposed to something that makes us want to make the next step and take the next breath. In fact, why don't we do that? I want everybody at this moment, just take a minute. Just breathe in. We always breathe at the same time, but we don't always breathe in unison. Let's just do that to acknowledge our shared humanity. With that, I want to introduce you again to the wonderful work and the thrilling humanity of Jodi Heights.
So this is a Celtic harp. Her name is Bridget, if you would like to know her name. That's what I've named her. And this next song I'm going to do is using the Northern Lights as a symbol for following our intuition. And I think there comes moments in our lives where we know it's time to leave something, but we're not quite sure what we want to take its place. And it can be very easy to rush into doing something to fill the void, to fill the vacuum. This song is about choosing to pause, about waiting in that unknown until your intuition, your heart, your spirit leads you towards what's the right next step for you. It's called Aurora.
I've been wandering far and wide in this polar night, watching shadows come alive in this twilight. Solar winds begin to blow, and I feel an answering glow in my search for clarity. I'm training my eyes eyes to see Aurora. Suddenly the lights appear, gleaming soft and clear, radiance dancing in the dusk. I am awestruck, solar winds begin to blow, and I feel an wrinkle in my search for clarity. I'm training my eyes to see luminous, flaring in my chest, echoing the sun. The longest nights have done. Colors gleam like the dawn, leading me along, following patterns in the sky, guided by light. Solar winds begin to blow, and I feel it dancing in my search for clarity. I'm training my eyes to see in my search for clarity. I'm training my eyes to see Aurora.
Jodi Heights. I love that lyric.
So this next song I'm going to do is really about potential, and it's about the fact that there are so many things inside of us that we aren't even aware of what we're fully capable of. So how could anybody else possibly know? And if you look back at your life, there are moments where you either had to rise to a challenge because you chose to or because you were forced to, and there were things that you did that you didn't even know were possible. So the core of this song is, who are you to tell me what I can do? There are seeds inside me that have yet to bloom.
There was a time when I was young, I scattered wishes on the fertile ground and hoped they would grow. And some sprang up so strong and tall, while others never even budded at all. Along came drought, wilting my plans and sowing fear and doubt, so nothing else could sprout. Who are you to tell me what I can do? There are seeds inside me that have yet to bloom. That patch of earth lies fallow now. The thorns and weeds tried to choke out the seeds. They took no heed. The years went by, I changed and grew. And then one day, much to my surprise, at the perfect time, leafy and green right before my eyes, my hidden gifts arise. Who are you to inside me that have yet to bloom. What else lies there asleep in the dark? Dormant purpose germinate in my heart. There are seeds inside me that have yet to bloom. There was a time when I was young.
Who are you to tell me what I can do? There are seeds inside me that have yet to bloom. Thank you, Jodi, for those lyrics, and thank you, Emmeline, for the courage to tell that story that demands better of us as a community. Our next teller, Russ Tanner, was loosely raised in the Unitarian Church. He has always had an interest and respect for many different religions. He moved to Lexington in 2004 and was an active member here in First Parish for many years, where he, like me, was raised by his wife and 2 children. Though Russ likes to tell stories, he usually does not have the chance to do so in front of an audience that is this present and willing and accepting. So will you please be present, willing, and accepting of Russ Tanner.
Yeah, we'll need a few more inches there. It's getting there. It's coming. There we go. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay. I can even step back a touch. An atheist, a Unitarian minister, a Catholic priest, and his wife walked into town hall. That sounds like a joke, but it's a true story. In 1990, my wife and I moved from Cambridge to a town south of Boston that was very close to both of our jobs and was very affordable. We were able to buy a nice house walking distance to town, had room for a garden, it was in a nice neighborhood. And you know, we moved into that town not knowing a soul. Well, several years later, we had 2 small children, and we'd made a few friends. One of them was Leah, a lifelong resident of the town. And she, when she was a young social worker, she had met and fallen in love with a Catholic priest. Paul, her husband, told me that he knew that he would be immediately stripped of his right to perform Catholic services as soon as they were married. But he told me that he is still a Catholic priest and that he was definitely still doing the work of God. Well, by then, my wife and I realized that the town was a rather parochial and insular place. It was dominated by multi-generational townies. And we were definitely not townies. We were outsiders, or as the locals might say, newcomers. But Leah was a rebel, and she organized a little group. She got a little group together in town to oppose an anti-gay marriage bill that the state rep had sponsored in the state legislature. And in that group, I met Kathy, a Unitarian minister who got very involved in the group, and we were surprisingly successful. We helped convince that state rep to withdraw his sponsorship, and that nasty anti-gay bill never advanced in the legislature. So, that December, fresh off our little victory, the 4 of us were walking into town hall for a meeting. And being December, we had to literally walk around a large creche to get into the front door. It was a full-size creche with all the people and the animals, and was lit up at night. And it wasn't the only town-owned creche. There was another one in front of a public elementary school, just a few steps from the front door. I was particularly disturbed by the one in front of the school because it was in a little bit more diverse part of town, and I knew at least one Muslim family that had attended the school, and I'm sure there were several other non-Christian families with kids going to that school. But these town creches were a treasured town tradition that had been going on at least since the 1950s. And we had been accepting it for many years, and in Leah's case, for her entire life. Now, the four of us had been advocating for the rights of gay residents in Massachusetts. And we found ourselves now wondering, were we prepared to stand up for religious freedom in our own community? Did we have the courage to defend the separation of church and state in our own town, which meant telling our neighbors and our town leaders that we thought their treasured tradition was in the wrong? Well, our gay rights group had actually been fairly well received, so we thought maybe it wouldn't be too bad. And the four of us decided we'd give it a try. We got 6 people signed a letter to the Board of Selectmen and the school committee asking them to end the practice and pointing out the unconstitutionality of having town-owned creches on town-owned land, particularly when they were unavoidable by anyone who wanted to participate in town government or attend that elementary school. Well, nothing happened, nothing changed that December, of course. And a year later, the 2 creches went up as usual. So the following summer, I contacted the ACLU and asked them if they might be able to help. And by that fall, the ACLU was representing me and Kathy and Paul and Leah in our dispute with the town. Another letter went to the Board of Selectmen and the school committee. And the selectmen, fortunately, very quickly acknowledged that they were in the wrong. They gave away the creche to a group of town residents who painted it and fixed it up. And that December, they were able to place it on a portion of the town common that had been designated a free speech zone. They even had a little unveiling event that was modestly attended. And it seemed to me that many people in town were very pleased that the creche had been fixed up and had a new home with private sponsorship. That was our little kumbaya moment. But unfortunately, the school committee did not back down. The creche went up in front of the school, as it always had that year. We decided not to take the matter to court, but that's when things deteriorated. Kathy, our spokesperson, had her house graffitied and egged multiple times. I was confronted with "Dan ACLU" on the street and a lot of hard stares and some choice words at the coffee shop. And Leah, lifelong townie, I'm sure took a lot of grief from many people she knew, and maybe including some of her family. But she was not at all surprised. Now, for myself, I was not worried about the situation for me, but I became upset at how it affected my family. It seemed that even fewer people were willing to be nice, to be friendly with us. There were no trick-or-treaters coming to our house that fall. And then our daughter was denied admission to the Girl Scouts, which I think really broke her heart. Our son was whittled down basically to one friend in the school. We weren't just feeling like outsiders at that point. We were beginning to feel like outcasts. So later that year, the ACLU did file suit against the school committee, and the committee eventually settled, and there was no more creche in front of the elementary school. But by that time, despite having made some good friends in the town, my wife and I realized that the town was no longer feeling like our home. After all, we had broken the town's rules, and I had put our names on it. Now, about a year or so later, we decided we started looking around for another place to live, and of course we landed here in Lexington. And a little while after moving here, we realized that here some people might say to us, "You're newcomers, welcome." And I know they meant it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russ. I often joke that Lexington is a place where you can say, "I've lived here 40 years, and folks will say, "Welcome to the neighborhood." I love the irony of Russ's story, where he, in a church, comes to remind us that freedom of religion also demands freedom from religion. That often the idea of being held to constitutional scrutiny is not the default position of so many of our citizenry. And as it appears, we need to defend it every now and then. And sometimes we have to break those unwritten "thou shalt nots" and do the right thing, which may not always be the nice thing, but it's the right thing. Thank you, Russ, for reminding us of that. We've come to a space in our evening in which we're drawing to a close. We've heard from mavericks, poachers, tradition buckers, and rule breakers of many kinds. Tonight we started off speaking about Ralph Waldo Emerson. Henry David Thoreau. Now we're going to speak a bit about Ralph Waldo Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson was that famous thinker, and decidedly he was the dawn amongst New England transcendentalists. He said we should be self-reliant existentialists, which means we should rely upon our very own experience and not accept all of those preconditions and preconceptions we've inherited, like social, racial, political, religious, and all other kinds of prejudice. He said we should beware of demagogic fundamentalists. He said we should beware of demagogic fundamentalists. Check out the way Ralph Waldo kicks that 19th century rhetoric. He says, to be yourself in a world that demands you become something other is the greatest accomplishment. Be patient with yourself. Every great artist was once an amateur, and, well, your character is worth more than your intellect. For every minute you spend being angry, you are going to lose 60 seconds of happiness. But maybe the goal of life is not to be happy, but to be useful and have your life make a difference. Now, no, it won't be easy to do any of this. Sometimes at one time we're going to have to break the rules and make a mental shift into another way of thinking, a vaster, deeper consciousness, maybe dig into the part in us, the voice that insists that we somehow learn to love, play, pray, chant, and dance, yo. Sometimes we got to break the rules and take a chance on becoming something more than we've been taught we can be. I'm talking real human beings, not these human bling things. Yes, the world can be an enemy whose mission be to empty you of empathy, intelligence, and energy, come around and destroy whatever joy you got left, beat you down, make you want to give up your last breath. But don't let them head fake you, shake and bake and back break you down to the ground, come around, clown and undertake you. Break the rules, people, and fight back. And my advice is, use whatever thing of beauty you got left inside of you as your weapon. Do you dig? Do you dig? Do you dig? So to leave you with a bit of song and music, please welcome Jodi Heights.
So there is a part of our mind, some people call it the ego or the monkey mind. I call mine the inner critic. And when we go to break the rules, when we go to do something new that we haven't done, this little voice pipes up. And it's there to try and keep us safe, but sometimes it gets a little overzealous. So some people think of it as very monstrous and scary. I decided to make mine more of an anal retentive office manager. She's very organized. She's really good at what she does. She's trying to keep you safe, and she doesn't know why you're angry. So this is Inner Critic. Thanks for having me tonight.
It's nice to meet you. I am your inner critic. I'm here to tell you all the things you should have done. I don't have many talents. I'm only here to save you from all the things your parents told you you'd become if you didn't study. Think of me as your buddy. Give me a chance, I can scare off the pants of anyone that I meet. Don't make a move unless I can approve and guarantee you'll succeed. I'm only being helpful. I don't know why you're angry. I only told you that you're worthless and unloved. Who told you you could do that? It seems like risky business. Let me just show you all the things that could go wrong. Let's imagine Bedlam. There you go, you're welcome. Failure is probable, don't be impossible. Let me save you time. Don't bother trying, you might end up dying. Skip the uphill climb. Fear is a friend on whom you can depend to have your back for life. Trust me, I know just how bad things can go. It's best to let dreams die. So long, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad to be of service. I'll be right here in case you need to settle down. Don't do that, are you crazy? Thank God I pay attention. Where would you be now if I hadn't come around just in time to stop it? It would have been catastrophic. Good thing you have a sidekick. Your faithful inner critic.
Jodi Heights, everyone. Keep that going. We want to bring the storytellers back to the stage. Let's see Don Yansen. Keep it going. JoAnn Mulready-Shick. Come on up, come on up, come on up, come on up. Emmeline, Valerie, Jodi, please. Ken, if you would not mind. AJ, or RJ, if you would come up. And also, we'd like to thank all of the people that make voices happen. David, Deborah, Susan, Sarah, Liz, Deb Weiner, Scott, Amy, Andreas, Drew, Sophia, Ben Song, and Ruth Rose. Thank you for being here and for all the help you've given. And please, will you keep that going? We'd like to bring up the person who always sends us into the night with a blessing, Reverend Ann Mason.
Is this on? All right. Okay, we're good. So what an amazing night. I want to say thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to our performers, the people that work backstage, and to each one of us for creating a community which is not run by rules, but run by relationship. In every story that I heard, it was the relationships, whether it was lobster fishermen or whether it was people in a high school that were standing up for each other. That we, as a Unitarian Universalist congregation, are heretics. We have broken rules from the beginning. That's why we exist. We were told we had to be a certain way, and we said, no, let's try it this way. And every time we bump up into those boundaries, we say, let's try it a new way. And it's always based on how can we be in relationship with each other. As we learn more and more about each other and the truth of who we are, we try to create this container where each person can be their true selves and be loved for who they are, not for how they conform to what society says. So for each of you, join me in our heretical, joyful existence of helping each other to be our true selves. So thank you for coming. Blessings to all of you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Don't leave.